The following program contains coarse language. Listener discretion is advised.
Our fight for social, economic, racial, and environmental justice.
I think the American people are going to have to say to NBC and ABC and CBS and CNN, you know what? Forget the political gossip. Talk about the real damn issues facing this country.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here. YouTube.com/TYT Nation, part of the TYT Network. Here on YouTube, yes, we are actually part of the TYT Network, and we're not just ripping off their name. I know I still get comments like that sometimes that are like, are you just trying to rip on their name? No, dude, we are actually part of the TYT Network. 100% being real with you. Trust me, if we weren't, they might be saying something about it. But anyway, welcome to the show. Got a great show planned for you guys today. We have another TYT Network partner joining us in a little bit, probably about quarter after. That is Ron Placone. He's going to be joining us as well. Unusual for a Monday, but unusual is the name of the game, especially since we've changed times. Got this damn glare. So you might have noticed I'm making some studio improvements. Over the next couple of weeks, I'll be adding some stuff in. We'll be seeing what works. Ordering some background material, some lighting, and stuff to make the studio look a little bit better, a little bit more professional, a little bit nicer. And also, I'm dressing up a little bit, but we're also adding in Fridays, so that's super exciting. So we'll be doing Friday shows now as well, which will be I've decided casual Friday, so I'm going to bring back some of the awesome shirts that I love wearing on Fridays. So that's going to be fun. Anyway, we've got stories. Not a lot of time to get to it before Ron gets here. I want to get one of these stories banged out real quick. And that's, of course, Donald Trump's Muslim ban. Then we're going to talk, of course, and all the links to the sources, of course, are in the description of the show. We've got protesters protesting Donald Trump's Muslim ban. Then we've got Kellyanne Conway. That's going to be a fun story. Then we've got Uber versus Lyft. An exciting new chapter into that little rivalry that we've got going on. And then we'll have some fun. We'll talk about Chinese rent-a-dates. Fascinating. You guys will get my thought on that whole phenomenon. And saggy pants. So I'm talking about dating and saggy pants with Ron. Two old guys talking about issues. Well, Ron's not that old, but I am. Anyway, hope you stay for the next hour right here, youtube.com/TYT Nation. Also playing on FYI Nation as well. Before I get started, thank you to the patrons. I always have to thank the patrons for keeping the show going, for allowing us to continue going and growing, and of course doing the new stuff with the studio. Couldn't do that if you guys didn't help fund the show. Patreon.com/TYT Nation. Thank you guys and gals so much for supporting truly independent, certainly independent, non-corporate media. Anyway, let's go. Let's do this Trump ban. Now, on Friday, Donald Trump signed an executive order essentially banning Muslim refugees from Syria, as well as Muslim migrants and travelers from the countries of Iraq, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. Now, some of which I have to note that we are bombing right now. That we have been bombing for the last, decade, if not longer. Despite the fact that, of course, no actual terrorist attacks that have been successful on U.S. soil have originated from a majority of these countries. So keep that in mind as we go through this story. Now, the ban first, of course, included people who are dual citizens, and even those who have green cards, basically those who are legal to live and work in the United States. Now, that was eventually overturned over the weekend because there was so much pressure, so much political pressure, so much popular pressure as well that they were like, oh, okay, we can bring back the green card thing, I guess. Now, the ban also suspended the Syrian refugee program, that is still in place. Unless, of course, you're a Christian, then, hey, come on in, guys. You're welcome. If you're a Christian, great. And coming from any one of these countries, awesome. If you're a Muslim coming from any of these countries, well, you better not come at all, or we're going to send you home, or we're going to hold you at the airport until we forcibly deport you. We're going to put you on a plane and send you back to wherever it is you're fleeing. Interesting. Now, ironically, Trump defends his travel ban first by saying, well, hey, I got to do it. We don't have a choice. I got to ban these people from these countries because I got to keep the country safe from these terrorists, from these refugees. Now, he also claims that it's not because of religion, but as I just pointed out, they're accepting Christians from Syria. They're accepting Christians from Iraq, Iran, wherever. So, but not the Muslims, which it does actually make it religious in nature. Just saying. Now, now he also said that Obama had done the same exact thing. That's not quite correct. And I'm gonna break it down. Let me break this down. Now, first of all, yes, as I said, it is a ban on Muslims. Not all Muslims, of course. And anybody who's saying, oh, it's a blanket ban on all Muslims, not quite. Now, you have people from Saudi Arabia, for example, majority Muslim country, United Arab Emirates, majority Muslim country again, and Egypt, majority Muslim country, not banned. But here's the reason that you can still say it's based on religion is because, again, the Christian thing. You're going to say, well, we can have Christians here, but no Muslims. Okay. I keep beating that to death, but I think that's a super important point. Now, you also have the claim is that the claim from Trump and the Republicans that this is to prevent terrorism. Now, remember, according to statistics, according to actual data and facts, not alternative facts, that you have countries that are mentioned in this travel ban, well, people from these countries have actually killed 0 Americans on U.S. soil. None. Nobody. Oh, okay. Now, interestingly enough, this is where it gets into the hypocritical part. The countries that are not on this list that don't have travel bans, well, you have Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and the United Arab Emirates, right? Now, these countries actually do have a history of their citizens killing Americans on U.S. soil. For example, you have citizens from Saudi Arabia. Now, in total, they killed 2,369 Americans between the years of 1975 and 2015. Now, all these numbers are from the right-leaning Cato Institute. So this is not liberal facts or fake news. This is coming from your own fucking think tanks. And even they're like, you can't really argue with the math, man. You've got, 2,360. You know what the majority of that is? 9/11. The most destructive terrorist attack in U.S. history. Saudi Arabia. Those are citizens from Saudi Arabia. Now, you also have Egyptian citizens that killed a total of 162 Americans between the years of 1975 and 2015, and the same time frame, according to Cato, you have 314 American citizens that were killed by citizens of the United Arab Emirates between that same time frame. So, but we're not banning those countries. No. You know why? Because along with Turkey, those 3 countries just happen to have business ties with Donald Trump. And Saudi Arabia specifically is considered a top U.S. ally. And this was even during the Obama administration, the Bush administration. They're a top ally. You know why they're a top ally? Cheap oil. Let's call it what it is. Cheap oil. Now, in this case, with Donald Trump, he also has business ties, as well as Saudi Arabia being a place for cheap oil. Now, let me give you some details into those business ties. Now, Trump, according to data, Trump registered 8 companies tied to hotel interests in Saudi Arabia shortly after launching his campaign in August of 2015. Now, this is according to the Washington Post, actually. The companies were registered under names as THC Jeddah Hotel and DT Jeddah Technical Services. Company names the Post reported bore striking resemblances to the one Trump has registered in other foreign countries. So I guess it makes sense that he follows a particular naming scheme when it comes to his business. Okay. Now, during a campaign rally in Alabama last year, to show just how Donald Trump thinks about Saudi Arabia, he said, quote, "Of the Saudis, oh, I like them. They buy apartments from me. They spend $40 million, $50 million. Am I supposed to dislike them? I mean, they give me all this money. Am I supposed to not like the Saudis? No, I love the Saudis. They give me lots of money. They rent my apartments. They buy my apartments. It's great. I love them. I love them. They're fantastic. I like them very much," he says. Well, okay. Let me give you a snapshot of the country that Donald Trump loves so much. According to a declassified U.S. intelligence report known as the 28 Pages, the Saudi government and its wealthy citizens actively funded Muslim radicalism through mosques and charities in the U.S. around the time of 9/11. And the 19 hijackers were in close contact with Saudi nationals before carrying out that terror attack, which of course is the worst one in U.S. history. But no, I love the Saudis, but we got to go after radical Islamic terrorism. That's what we got to go. First we got to name it radical Islamic terrorism, and then we've got to go after it. We got to go after the countries that are perpetuating it. Oops. Or not. Or we're just going to sign business deals with them and consider them our top ally in the region. That's what we're doing here. This is insane. Now, I also remember Donald Trump going out and talking about how Hillary Clinton took money from Saudi Arabia. Well, yes, what she did is that she gave weapons contracts through the State Department to Saudi Arabia. I remember covering that story and being incredibly critical about not only their rights, their record of human rights abuses, women's rights abuses, and the fact that they, yes, did bankroll and support radical Islamic terrorism. Gotta say it the way it is. Gotta call it by the name. You gotta call it out, right? It's radical Islamic terrorism. Saudi Arabia, one of the biggest purveyors of Wahhabism, which is radical Islam. It's the most radical form of Islam that they have. But again, we're not talking about Saudi Arabia now that Donald Trump's in charge. In fact, we're not going to talk about banning them. Not that I'm advocating for a ban on anybody from Saudi Arabia. But to not ban them while banning others from countries that did not attack us, it's hypocritical to the core. Now, furthermore, you have Egypt, right? Now, in Trump's latest FEC filings, well, there are two companies that are listed in the country of Egypt. Now, it's called Trump Marks Egypt and Trump Marks Egypt LLC, both of which are most likely connected to a development venture. Now, you also have the United Arab Emirates. The Trump organization has a licensing and management deal in Dubai for 2 golf courses and a whole neighborhood of luxury villas that are currently under construction. Not only that, but Trump has frequently traveled to Dubai and to the United Arab Emirates, I should say, with Ivanka. They've been seen, photographed doing a golf course and shaking hands with the sheiks and, being all sorts of friendly, right? Now, the UAE ranks as the 6th richest country in the world. However, there is a widespread ISIS presence and Al-Qaeda presence. I thought we were going after ISIS. I thought ISIS was the worst thing in the world. We got to go after them. We got to bomb these countries. We got to knock ISIS the hell out, man. Well, ISIS is sitting right there next to your fucking hotels. You're not going to do anything about it. What a fraud. This guy's an absolute fraud. This isn't about the safety of the American people, man. What it's about banning Muslims that Trump doesn't like. He's trying to fulfill his campaign promises without actually imperiling his business deals. That's what it is. Anybody who hasn't given money to Donald Trump or allowed them to build a fancy hotel or a golf course, well, he's just going to give a giant middle finger to. And that's what's going on here. Hypocrisy. Now, finally, on the Obama administration part. No, the Obama administration, yes, it did ban people from Iraq, okay? Now, what happened is that he paused approval for refugee applications from Iraq for 6 months total after 2 Iraqi al-Qaeda terrorists were discovered living as refugees in Kentucky. So he stopped that and he said, well, we're going to have to look at that. Okay, so I'm sorry, we're going to have to temporarily stop you from coming into the country. Now, look, this refugee ban is, well, the refugee ban is suspended indefinitely until review. However, the other parts of the ban were, 90 days, I believe? That's a little less than Obama's ban, and not quite the same thing. Now, for me, I didn't agree with either ban, to be honest. Now, why? It's because maybe instead of banning people who are running from terrorism, maybe we should stop bombing these countries first. I mean, look, you bomb the hell of the country. You destroy rule of law and order. And then when everything goes to shit, you then try to ban people who are trying to escape from the country that you turned into a giant shithole. That's not good policy. That's terrible policy. So if we could stop bombing them first, that'd be great. And if you want to blame Obama for something, you can blame him for continuing the bombing of these countries. And I think that's a fair criticism. Now, thankfully, of course, this has caused a massive wave of protest and a decision by a judge that prevented the deportation of people from these countries that are still trapped in airports after this executive order was signed. Now, the ACLU actually sued in a lower court and want to stay on this issue. According to Lee Gellert, deputy director of the ACLU's Immigrants' Rights Project, says, quote, this ruling preserves the status quo and ensures that people who have been granted permission to be in this country are not illegally removed off U.S. soil. Now, this comes from, of course, this decision, U.S. District Court Judge Ann Donnelly, who granted the stay, after determining there would be substantial and irreparable damage and injury to refugees, visa holders, and other individuals from nations subject to the executive order. Our courts today, according to ACLU Executive Director Anthony Romero, our courts today work today as they should as bulwarks against government abuse or unconstitutional policies and orders. On week 1, Donald Trump suffered his first loss in court. And look, it was because he had an incredibly hypocritical order. And I just pointed out the reasons why it's incredibly hypocritical and why it's incredibly wrong. And look, I hope that this defeat in court is the first of many defeats in court, because these rulings, these orders cannot stand on their own. We've got to continue to fight them, and maybe eventually we are going to, not maybe, we are going to win. All right. So let's bring in let's bring in Ron here to do the show. So I'm gonna get a hold of him right now.
Hey man.
Hey Ron. Welcome to the show. Not
Thank
too
you.
bad.
Good to be here.
So we're gonna keep going. We're gonna talk about the protests against Donald Trump's Muslim ban. So
Okay.
and everybody, welcome Ron Placone to the show. You guys know who he is. Nice background, by the way. Looking
Thanks,
good.
man. I'm in a different location today, so I had to figure some stuff out.
Looking good. Looking good.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. So let's get going on this next story. Now, following Donald Trump's ban on Muslim migrants, refugees, and travelers from 7 different Middle Eastern countries, leading to the detention of said migrants, the American people immediately decided, no, we're not going to stand for that. We're going to go and we're going to protest. Now, of course, protests did erupt all over the country, 40 different cities, when stories of travelers, some of which were green card holders and dual citizens, many with, of course, jobs, homes, and lives here in America, were detained by the TSA to be deported back to those countries. Now, in fact, the New York Times is reporting that tens of thousands of people occupied airports in solidarity against the Donald Trump ban. You have protests in New York, Washington, D.C., Dallas, San Francisco, L.A., Detroit, Boston, Phoenix, and many others. In fact, I want to give you guys a couple of pictures here for context. These two are from New York. One's from a march a march in New York, and the other is in the JFK airport. So let me show you these. So that right there is a picture of the crowd inside JFK. That's a big crowd, man. That's huge. And then the next one we've got here is a picture of the protest march against the Muslim ban. So as you can see, it's a pretty robust thing that's going on here. This is resistance, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty inspiring to see. I mean, I know that that LA, like a lot of my friends went down to that, and a lot of people were out there. Some of my friends were participating in the Seattle one. I was not able to make it, unfortunately, yesterday, but you know, if it continues, I'm going to try to get down there. Although LAX is always a nightmare, no matter what you're there to do. But I think it was great. I mean, I saw this one really popular meme that's been circling around, and it was a photo of somebody holding a sign, and the sign said, "First they came for the Muslims, and we said not today, motherfucker." And I thought that was great. I thought that was great. Kudos to the person holding that sign. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there was more than one of them, but there was like one particular one that really went viral, and then I guess people probably started making more. But you know, man, and I'll say this to like add another like just experience to it. As far as what's going on, I was going on a walk just today, just about an hour ago, and there was this guy holding his phone, and he had it on speaker because I guess he needed to have it on speaker. He didn't have headphones or whatever, and you know, you couldn't help but hear it. And he was on the phone waiting to leave a message for his congressperson. And he was getting looks of encouragement and thumbs up from everybody that walked by him, including myself. And this is stuff that's not super commonplace. You know, it's not common for that amount of political activism to be the norm. And
well, not here in America.
Huh?
Well, not here in America. I mean, like
Right.
in other places, like for example, like in France, you drop like you add like a couple of hours to the French work week, and they're out in the streets. Sacre bleu!
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna take
No,
over.
that's true, and that's why they have weeks and weeks of paid maternity leave. That's why they have the best healthcare system in the world.
Are you saying
there
they
actually
fight
is
for
a
it
bit
and
of
win?
a right wing rise going on there, I believe. But yeah, I mean,
Still.
I see your point, and that's something that is a trend. Like the more the places that have the most kind of political astuteness that are also democratic experiments like ours get positive results because of that. So, I mean, this trend is really, really special, and hopefully the start of a much better tomorrow in a weird idiot savant-esque way. Maybe this administration really is going to make America great, just not in the way they thought they were going to, and not in the short run.
Maybe it's make America pissed off again. Is that
Right.
what it
I mean,
is?
totally. Like, you got to get mad, right?
Yeah.
I mean, network.
Yeah, and it's interesting seeing all of this activism that's out here. It's really amazing. Again, going back to, I mean, you said there is a little bit of a right-wing rise in France. Well, why is that? Well, there is right-wing populism as well. And guess what? Populism, kind of popular. That's also part of what drove Brexit, too. Then a complete lack of understanding about what Brexit was really about, but it was still a popular uprising because people were like, hey, I don't want the elites to be in control of things. Hey, I actually want, jobs here and all that stuff. And you have unscrupulous politicians that are like, okay, vote for me and I'll do that, sucker. And so I love
Yeah,
all that
and
activism.
now that people are realizing, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, nothing. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, now that people are realizing that they bought snake oil populism with Trump, it will make way for true populism to occur in 2018, and then hopefully even furthermore in 2020,
Right.
if the Democrats wake up.
if the Democrats wake up, and that's
It's a shame we
really
still have
the
to
big
say
question.
if, but
Right, that's a big question when it comes to the Democrats because it seems like they haven't learned a damn thing. But I do want to mention there were some Democrats that were actually out there doing something, which is kind of amazing. And there was actually Elizabeth Warren that showed up. I know, showed up with John Lewis. You had Pramila Jayapal, and you even had Hillary Clinton coming out of the woods to tweet about it.
yeah, I saw she tweeted about it. She wasn't there, but
She wasn't
tweeted
there.
about it.
Can't give her that much credit, but apparently in the cabin where she's hiding, there might be there's some Wi-Fi there, so or maybe a hotspot set up, so she
Well,
can
I mean,
tweet.
honestly, the best thing she could do for the country, and this isn't, I'm not trying to bash Hillary even, but, it's just the truth at this point. The best thing she could do is kind of stay away
Yeah,
at this point.
yeah, that's true. But again, like this entire ban, I mean, it's driving everybody crazy. And it should because this entire thing is abhorrent. It is a religious test. And I was talking about that. I mean, some of the reports, and I can't really say this is 100% verified, but I mean, you do have like these the TSA agents instituting these tests for migrants or people with dual citizenship. In fact, you have reports that are claiming that these agents wanted to look at your social media if you're coming from one of these countries. Let me take a look at your Facebook. Let me take a look at what you've been tweeting, what kind of groups you belong in, and all that different stuff, and also asking their views on America and Donald Trump. What's your views
I feel
on?
like I wouldn't pass this test.
None of us would.
I feel like they'd be like, "You're out. Go away."
Yeah, go back to your home country. Well, I guess I'm gonna go back to Europe. Me, I'd go back to Austria. Wouldn't be so bad.
Yeah, I guess I would have to go back to Italy, which in some ways would be cool, but I think for practicality's sake and work's sake, I'd be better off in England
True.
or something like that.
True. And again, remember that this entire ban too banned people originally with work visas. And so, look, the whole thing is, so the point is, this is the beginning of the elimination of America as a country that accepts all different types of people from all different walks of life. And to be honest, this whole thing is not even based on facts or truth. I mean, it's based on lies told for political gain. And that's all it's there for. I mean, none of the countries that we've banned travel from have attacked the United States. None of their citizens have attacked the United States, at least not successfully. And yet, for the past decade, we have been bombing them with drones. The Obama administration has been bombing a lot of these countries. Yemen, for example, Somalia. The drones have been flying. People are afraid because the Predator drones are going to come for them. U.S.-made drones. It kind of seems like we're the ones inflicting terror onto them. I know. And Donald Trump is, of course, continuing. Is Donald Trump suspending the drone program? Hell no, he's not.
No,
Are you
of course
kidding
not.
me?
I mean, he'll likely expand it. It's going to be a lot of spreading democracy,
Indeed. Indeed.
which is code for they have oil and we want it.
It basically it's a continuation of the stuff that he said he was not going to do. So, congratulations, America. And look, that's why people are out there. That's why there are these massive protests, because what he's doing right now is patently, at this point, un-American, even though we as America do have a kind of sad history of keeping out immigrants and migrants and for stupid racist reasons. So maybe it's not so un-American after all, but I like to believe in the better version of America, the America that does welcome people, the America where we have that inscription on the Statue of Liberty. Give us your tired poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, and we'll let them in. That's obviously not.
And to kind of tie it into something positive again, you mentioned drone strikes and stuff like that. Yeah. Hopefully, and not right this moment because of all the executive orders that are going on and stuff like that. But now that a lot of people are really paying attention and a lot of people are really getting mad, that's something else that a big light will be shown on, because I mean, it wasn't super uncommon when you're talking about Obama with somebody and being like, yeah, one of the biggest disappointments is the drone strikes or stuff like that. And they kind of look at you like they don't know what you're talking about. That kind of really went under the radar
Yeah.
for a long time. But now that Trump's doing it, a much less popular president already, and his popularity is only going to decline more and more. There might be some much needed light shown on a lot of stuff, and hopefully the public outcry really keeps up and keeps up the momentum.
Yeah, and somebody that you work with all the time, Jimmy Dore, kept bringing up that whole thing. The Democrats
Yeah.
were asleep. President Obama, while President Obama was president, he put the left to sleep. They didn't talk about this stuff. They didn't talk about the drones. They didn't talk about the extrajudicial killings of people, the signature strikes. There are very few outlets that covered this stuff. And now that Donald Trump is president, the left has suddenly decided to wake up. So, more and more I'm starting to like go back and look at Jimmy and be like, that guy nailed it.
Well, and hey, man, I got to say real quick, if you don't mind, since you mentioned Jimmy Dore, for anybody that might be watching right now during the live stream, or anybody that sees this relatively soon, tonight, January 30th, there is a Jimmy Dore live show at Flappers Comedy Club in Burbank for any LA viewers. Stop on down. I will be there. Of course, Jimmy will be there, and there's a fantastic lineup tonight. So come on down to Flappers for any LA viewers. Come say hi.
It's a nice little. We'll end on that nice little plug there,
Thanks, man.
and we'll go to let's go to our next story. We'll talk about Kellyanne Conway. I save some of these stories for you, man.
Thanks.
Save
I
the best
appreciate
ones.
it.
Now, Kellyanne Conway is calling for the firing of journalists that oppose Donald Trump. Now, this is during an interview on Fox News Sunday. And basically, it's where she did what she always did. She went after the media. Now, let's take a look at that, and then we'll break it down.
People, who's cleaning house? Which one is going to be the first network to get rid of these people who said things that just weren't true? Talk about fake news. Talk about alternative facts. What happened last week? I went on 3 network Sunday shows. I spoke for 35 minutes on 3 network Sunday shows. You know what got picked? The fact that I said alternative facts, not the fact that I ripped a new one to some of those hosts for never covering the facts that matter to America's women. The 16.1 million women in poverty as we sit here. The 12.4 million women who have no health insurance. Everybody should feel outraged. The billions of dollars we have spent as a nation on public education, only to have millions of kids trapped in schools that fail them and never really promote and protect their intelligence and prepare them for the world as they all deserve. They shouldn't be restricted by the zip code where they live. They should be lifted up. This has all been a colossal failure, and nobody wants to talk about that.
Nobody wants to talk about that. Well, that's kind of interesting. Actually, there are a lot of people that want to talk about that. We talk about that all the time. I guess maybe they never watched TYT or TYT Nation. If they did, their heads would probably explode. But no. So because the news never mentions like poverty, which, look, again, I want to fault cable news. She might actually be right. They don't actually talk about those issues with a lot of substance.
She is right there. I mean, I mean, that's true.
That there's some substance in that criticism, and I'll agree with that. I mean, they do ignore issues of poverty and how policies, interestingly enough, geared towards helping the super rich, tend to exacerbate the problem of massive poverty. Now, the thing is that she's saying that these people, they were lying. They actually weren't lying. They weren't creating fake news. They just weren't covering these issues because it's not sexy to cover things like income inequality or money in politics. And so it's not the same.
Well,
as
and they're not going to cover
lying about
money in politics because they're benefiting from it.
that too. Exactly. So look, not talking about those issues is not the same as lying about something or providing alternative facts. They're just not the same thing. So she's coming out and saying, oh, they're saying these things that are just not true about Donald Trump. No, a lot of things are actually true about Donald Trump. It just turns out that he's got a lot of baggage. Interesting. Now I'm going to go and we're going to play more of that clip. So here's more of Kellyanne Conway.
We have all the headlines. People should feel embarrassed. Not one network person has been let go. Not one silly political analyst and pundit who talked smack all day long about Donald Trump has been let go. They're on panels every Sunday. They're on cable news every day. Who's the first editorial writer? Where's the first blogger that will be let go that embarrassed his or her outlets? We know all their names. I'm too polite to call them out by name, but they know who they are, and they're all wondering why I'd be the first to go. The election was 3 months ago. None of them have. If this were a real business, if the mainstream media were a thriving private sector business that actually turned a profit, which is not true of many of our newspapers, Chris, 20% of the people would be gone. They embarrassed. They failed to protect their shareholders and their board members and their colleagues. And yet we deal with them every single day. We turn the other cheek. If you're part of Team Trump, you walk around with these gaping, seeping wounds every single day. And that's fine. I believe in a full and fair press. I'm here every Sunday morning. I haven't slept in months. I believe in a full and fair press. But with a free press comes responsibility. And the responsibility is to get the story right.
Oh, my God. I love that.
She is so full of shit, it's unbelievable.
I love so much of that. First of all, you notice the victimhood mentality. We walk around with... Team Trump walks around with gaping wounds and holes every day.
That we can only fill with dollar bills.
Dude, your dude's president. How can you continue to be a victim? I mean, special snowflakes right here. Okay, special snowflake Kellyanne Conway. But no, I'm not. I'm too nice to go out and call out those people. Maybe because
she doesn't know who they are. She has no clue. She was handed these talking points by someone else. And actually, what she said was just straight up lies. I mean, even the host should have been like, we are a private sector business. We do look out for our shareholders. In fact, the shareholders are the only group that they give a fuck about.
Pretty
the
much.
Corporate media cares about two things: advertisers, shareholders. That's it. So, I mean, what she was saying about them failing as organizations, she's absolutely right. But her reasons why, like, it's the total opposite. Like, no, it's not because they are not a thriving business. They are a thriving business. It's not because they don't care about their shareholders. They do care about the shareholders. It's because they don't give a shit what they're supposed to give a shit about, which is creating news. That's what they're supposed to care about.
Well, not creating
news.
news.
So misdirected, and that's why she likes alternative facts and thinks that 2 + 2 is 5.
No, not creating news, but actually covering news and covering facts that matter. So
creating
I
news
think
too, because they don't have the boots on the ground that they should have.
Well, I was going to put creating news as more of like your Breitbart that creates news out of whole cloth, that basically lies and fabricates things. So that's what I consider creating news. But yeah, I hear what I hear what you're saying. Now, here's the other interesting thing that I wanted to talk about. And she's talking about, why haven't people been fired? Well, for trashing President Trump. Well, if you're talking about firing people who talked smack about a president, then pretty much all of right-wing media would be gone. That's it, gone. Because that's all they did for 8 years. And this isn't just normal, like, criticism, right? And criticism is fine. Criticism is great as long as it's based in fact. No. For 8 years, horrendous thing after horrendous thing has been said about President Obama. Look, and there are legitimate issues about the way President Obama did things, right? Again, caveat, drone warfare, spying on Americans, collecting their metadata, doing all that stuff, giving tax cuts, making the Bush tax cuts permanent. That's a big issue, right? But did we hear about any of that from right-wing politicians? No, absolutely not. What did we hear about? Benghazi. Obama's taking your guns. He's invading Texas. Obama's invading Texas with Jade Helm. Did you know that? Apparently, the invasion failed. I don't know. I didn't get any reports from Jade Helm.
Well, of course he invaded Texas. He doesn't care about Texas because he wasn't even born in this country.
He wasn't even born in this country. That's something that our president believed in. And then, of course, you even had sitting members of Congress believing that the UN is going to come into the country and put us all into hobbit homes. This was on a congressional website for Ted Cruz. Hobbit homes. Come on, guys. Or how about Obama's a Kenyan Muslim usurper? He's the Antichrist who wants to impose Sharia law. Look, the people that are saying this, Kellyanne Conway, for example, have you forgotten about the last, I don't know, 8 years? Have you? It seems like you have. Or are you just living out in a world full of alternative facts?
Well, she's living in her delusional bubble.
That's what it is, too.
I mean, she has no comprehension on how media works. She has no comprehension on how news works. And she appears on these shows and just spouts off the talking points that are handed to her.
Essentially. And look, if she really wants to talk about poverty or she wants to talk about education, okay, let's talk about poverty. Let's talk about education. Let's talk about how there's been a massive transfer of wealth in this country from the middle class to the incredibly rich. Okay, and look, it happened during Obama. It happened pre-Obama. It's been actually happening since Ronald fucking Reagan. Okay? What is it? They call it the Great Divergence, where the wealth from the top skyrocket. Wealth for regular people, working people, stagnant. Wages. Let's talk about public schools. How they've been defunded by things like charter schools and budget cuts. For example, Michigan, Texas, and other states that have essentially destroyed their public education system in favor of not only tax cuts for the rich. I mean, you gotta figure out how to fill the budget hole when you give a massive tax break to the corporations in your state, like Kansas did. And then where are you gonna get the money? Oh, you take it from education. You take it first from the colleges, then you take it from public schools. Because these kids, they don't need an education anyway. And besides, charter schools, which are just as expensive, come in and fill the hole with their vouchers. And they have it with, they actually perform worse than our so-called failing public school system. And look, what about women? She brought up women, right? Let's talk about women in poverty. Do you know that having children actually reduces a woman's income by 4% per child? So if you're working at a minimum wage job already and you have kids, or God forbid you get pregnant and you can't get access to an abortion, your income goes down. It's amazing. They're also less likely to get a job. And if you take away access to birth control and you limit abortions, you overturn Roe v. Wade, which is what they actually are trying to do, you're going to get more women in poverty. But you don't want to talk about that, Kellyanne Conway. You know why? Because you're a goddamn hypocrite. Oh, it pisses me off, man. This is what we're doing.
I mean, I think calling her a hypocrite is, maybe almost giving her too much credit. Because it's almost implying that she knows that she's spouting off against not only her own self-interest, but the self-interest of pretty much all Americans, except for the elite class that, should be behind Trump because they just want their taxes lowered. I don't think she's even cognizant of that. I don't think she has any clue.
No, maybe she doesn't. I don't know. Maybe she's an opportunist conservative mouthpiece, which is what I like to, apply to her and other people.
Of course she's an opportunist.
Tommy Loren, same thing. Opportunist conservative mouthpiece. They don't care about these issues, man. And what's more is that they actually want to present this and pretend like all the problems that America is facing, because we actually have problems with these, with poverty, with women not getting paid enough, and things like that. They want to blame this and put this on the feet of Barack Obama, despite the fact that it's not obviously Obama's fault or all his policies' fault. You have GOP governors that have been running the states for quite a while, and governorships in a lot of states. And I forget the number. Was it 69 legislatures or something like that that are taken over by the Republican Party, that are passing these ridiculously terrible policies for the working class, all for the benefit of a few? That's what you have. But we don't talk about that.
Well, this administration is going to have a very big uphill climb to try to, blame Obama for pretty much whatever it may be. I mean, this was a guy that left office with an incredibly high favorability ratings, and a lot of his policies, he kind of set them up like a domino. If you disrupt one, you're going to disrupt more. They have a really big uphill climb to try to frame that story. So instead, they need another scapegoat, which in this case, in this particular case, what we're talking about in this clip is the media, which is something that, Bannon's been parroting, Trump's been parroting since day one. because they need some kind of a scapegoat. And even though the media really hasn't even been holding them accountable, they're just going to go there first because he is just one PR nightmare after another, because he has the lifestyle habits of a cocaine addict and he's basically a cartoon villain. But now he has the most powerful position in the world. So it's just 24-hour cleanup duty.
Yeah. And I guess when it comes to, hiring somebody to clean up your messes, at least they made a good choice in Kellyanne Conway, because, man, no matter how many times she gets embarrassed on national media, she just keeps coming back for more.
Mm-hmm.
Sad. All right. Let's move on. You want to do the Uber story? Do you want to start in the Chinese story or what?
Uber. Let's talk about Uber.
You want to talk about Uber? Okay.
Why not?
Okay. Now, Uber is facing a backlash thanks to its response from Donald Trump's immigration ban. Now, MarketWatch, of all places, is reporting that people are protesting the company after they tweeted something ridiculous during the New York protest against the Muslim ban. Now, when you look at this tweet, when you hear this tweet, it's going to sound very innocuous, right? This is like a normal corporate tweet. Surge pricing has been turned off at JFK. This may result in longer wait times. Please be patient. Now, again, this fairly normal standard business tweet. Why does it got so many people pissed off? I mean, isn't turning off surge prices? Like, we've criticized surge pricing before. Like, if something happens, they jack up their rates so they can make an extra few bucks. So why are we criticizing them for doing the opposite? Well, it just happened to coincide with the New York taxi drivers going on strike and joining the protest at JFK. In fact, you have this quote from MarketWatch. It said the New York Taxi Workers Alliance, with membership of 19,000 people, had called on old drivers, including those with Uber and Lyft, not to pick up passengers from JFK and to instead join the protest. The group said its membership is largely Muslim and made up of immigrants, and that it was in defense of the oppressed as well as its own drivers, and that it was speaking against the ban. So basically, the problem here that a lot of people are seeing is that during this protest, and by the way, it was like an hour-long protest, so they took an hour off driving people to JFK to go and protest, which I think is fine. A lot of people, are pissed off because Uber said, we're going to swoop in, we're going to try to make a buck. We're going to lower our rates, though, so that people won't take our competitors, but they'll end up taking us and not the taxis, which are all shut down. So we're going to make a little bit of money that we might not have actually made before, which, of course, the problem is it might have undermined those protests. So I actually do believe that that's kind of the issue here. What's your take on this, Ron?
Well, I think like a lot more stuff has come to the surface. I mean, the kind of pro-Trump element of Uber, and a lot of people are just kind of deciding, well, I'd rather just give my business to Lyft. And now the whole kind of stigma around ride-sharing services is becoming more and more talked about. And that's one of those issues where, I mean, I know we've talked about this on the show before, and in particular, whenever we have Dan Sparron from Truth Mashup on the show. And when it comes to ride sharing, it's one of the few issues where I'm a little more on a side I'm not usually on, in the sense that because of the creative class, I'm not necessarily against ride sharing. And what I mean by that is, I consider the creative class people that are doing something entrepreneurial. Maybe it's something in a creative field that's especially pretty common here in LA, or maybe it's something like developing an app, developing software, starting some kind of business, whatever it may be. And they supplement their income for however long with something like Lyft or Uber. That's an entire class now in this country, for better or worse. Do I think that's the way it ought to be? Absolutely not. But that's the way it is, and we're kind of making the most of it, and we're adapting, which is something humanity needs to do, because wages are bullshit and wage discrepancy is catastrophic at this point. Until that shifts, this is the hand that we've been dealt. So things like ride sharing and stuff like that, they do fill a need. And just the whole argument of, well, stick with the cabs, stick with the unions and stuff like that. Unfortunately, we just don't have that luxury right now, the way I see it. But if you're going to become predatory about it, which I think Uber is crossing into that territory, then yeah, why not just go to Lyft? And I think most people are doing that. I myself, I actually haven't like straight up deleted my Uber app yet, but I totally plan on it. And I plan on just using Lyft. I mean, I haven't noticed a difference between the two as far as service goes.
Yeah.
So, why not just give my money to the other one? It makes sense. And I have a feeling that's what we're going to see. I have a feeling this could be it for Uber. I really do feel that way.
Yeah,
Because
I mean,
I think a lot of people don't really see a difference between the two. Any driver can just switch teams. Most
Yeah.
play for both anyway. So, I mean, if one gets forced out, you'll just play for the one. And I think in the scheme of things, it's not going to make much of a difference.
well, yeah, I mean, you brought up some larger points that we'll have to examine in another show, like the whole issue of the sharing economy and how it is kind of bullshit, but it is us trying to do what we're going to do. But to get back to Uber versus Lyft, I mean, here's their response, right? So after the backlash, Uber put out a statement saying, "We're sorry about any confusion about our earlier tweet. It was not meant to break up any strike. We wanted people to know that they could use Uber to get to and from to JFK at normal prices, especially tonight." So again, your standard corporate response. Now, you mentioned people are switching to Lyft, right? Well, Lyft actually had a statement about this. They basically denounced the Trump's Muslim ban and said, quote, "We stand firmly against these actions and will not be silent on issues that threaten the values of our community." Now, they also promised to donate $1 million over the next 4 years to the ACLU. So that's $250,000 a year. That's a pretty decent chunk of money. Now, that said, Lyft is not some giant, or tiny little startup. Lyft is valued at $5.5 billion, whereas Uber is valued at $68 billion. So that's a lot of money. So when you think about it, $1 million, kind of chump change, but hey, whatever, we'll take it, right? But anyway, the whole point is they're in competition, and Uber messes up, kind of screws up, according to some people, with this tweet. And here comes Lyft to save the day and to be the good guy. But I want to point out that they're both not good guys. They're both corporations. They both want to make money, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. And let me be clear here. I'm saying this is because you have to remember that they're not people. They are corporations. They make decisions based on profit, not morality. Now, sometimes that means doing bad things and doing stupid things, right? And we all know that. We cover that all the time. But then, other times, they make decisions that are actually pretty decent. They do good things. And look, do I believe that Lyft's founders, John Zimmer and Logan Green, are decent people that look at this and go, ooh, that Muslim ban, not good. I'm kind of against that. I actually believe that, yeah, because most normal, regular, decent human beings would be against such a thing. But the same thing is, this is where it intersects morality and business. You do the right thing, and you might actually get some money for it. And you might get increased business, which is what we're seeing. So, and look, the ACLU donation, got to give them credit for that, because that is smart business. Right. So, look, do I think Lyft is a great company, bravely standing up for American values? They did the right thing, sure. That's the same thing. I don't think Uber's an evil company for doing what they're doing either. I just think they're corporations and they have zero morality because they are not people. They're machines. Now, their owners have their own morality. I mean, you've mentioned the CEO of Uber being on Trump's team, right? The Trump's advisory board. But remember, he's sitting next to Elon Musk. Now, unlike some liberals that are like, oh, Elon Musk is an asshole, traitor, whatever. He's sitting on, I don't think that he's a bad person for sitting on Trump's advisory board. Because it doesn't invalidate the good that Tesla is actually doing, right? I mean, what's your opinion on this?
No, I mean, I see what you're saying, and I pretty much agree with you. I mean, to make it as if all of Lyft's actions are totally 100% altruistic and nothing else, of course that's not the case. You're right. These are corporations, these are businesses, and they're looking out for their bottom line. On the same note, as you pointed out, to assume that there's no accountability or integrity in any corporate structure, well, it totally shouldn't be that way. There should be a little bit of that. And I think in this case, Lyft demonstrated some of that, whereas Uber didn't. I mean, Uber made a fault, whereas Lyft made the right call.
They exploited on
and
that fault too.
huh?
Lyft exploited that fault that Uber had done.
I think exploited's a bit harsh, but
No,
yeah,
no, 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 no,
I mean
no.
maybe took advantage of it, definitely
Yeah,
used it to their advantage. I think
exactly.
exploited's a bit far, but yeah, I mean exactly. It's not all altruistic, of course it's not. But when certain corporations maintain a bar of integrity that's slightly higher than others, like that's something that I think people ought to notice because these companies aren't going away, and I'm
Mhm.
not a fan of corporate America at all, and neither are you, and we talk about this on the show all the time. But do I recognize differences between something like a Starbucks and something like a Walmart? Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, those differences are real.
sure, absolutely. And we got to point out those differences in corporate culture and what they do versus what they say, and we just like the reason that I want to point this out though, that I keep going back to it, is because we have to remember that corporations are not people, and they will do what's in best for profit, whether that means doing good things or bad things, and not to try to assign them, because I see with all these stories that I was looking at earlier, that they were trying to assign human values and human emotions onto companies that are not human beings. And yes, in trying to praise them as if they're good human beings, which we know they're not. So and that's the overall point that I'm trying to make. But
Hmm.
when it comes to Uber, I mean, if you don't like the way that Uber conducts its business practices, then by all means go over to Lyft. And look, if you don't like Lyft, go over to Uber. That's fine. At the end of the day, they're both corporations. They're both out there to make money. They will do good things. They will do bad things. And you just have to, remember, they're not people. They're not people. So, okay. Your choice, man. Rent a date or saggy pants?
Rent a date or saggy pants?
Or saggy pants. Oh,
Um,
by the way, we're gonna have to
let's do
let.
saggy pants.
Okay, we're gonna have to let
I'll take
FYI
saggy
Nation.
pants for 200, Alex.
All right. So we're gonna let FYI Nation go. By the way, so see ya. That's a nice sign off.
Yeah, right. That was really, really sincere.
I know.
See ya. All
See
right,
ya.
later. No, I didn't get to prep some of the specific stories today because I've been writing a bunch for the show tonight,
Oh yeah. All
getting
right.
all
So
the stories together.
sure. All right. Let's see. So saggy pants. A Mississippi lawmaker is proposing a bill to fine people if they are caught wearing saggy pants. Now, this is from Tom Weathersby, who is a Republican serving in the House of Representatives, and he has proposed a law that could lead to fines and even mental health counseling for people that decide they want to wear saggy pants. Or, I love how Huffington Post has to put this, quote, or a style in which pants hang so low that underwear is exposed.
And they wobble to and fro. You can tie it in a knot, Jeff.
Or in a bow. Now, let's get into the details of this. Now, Weathersby's bill, introduced last week, would make it unlawful for any person to wear pants, shorts, or clothing bottoms that exposes underwear or body parts in an indecent or vulgar manner. Now, the penalty for the first offense of the non-criminal citation is a warning, and for juveniles, notifying their parents or guardians. After that, fines begin at $20 for a second offense and run up to $100 for the sixth offense. That sixth offense would also include, get this, psychological and social counseling by the Department of Human Services and the Department of Mental Health. So sag your pants enough times, you're going to go and get a mental health screen. But that's not required for guns. I just want to put that juxtaposition out there. Okay?
Man,
not that I'm advocating for it, but that just to show the difference here.
So you could get free therapy if you just sag your pants a bunch?
Maybe.
That's
I
a
guess.
pretty good deal. I think, who couldn't benefit from something like that? Mississippians, sag your pants. Get some free health services. That state has so many issues. Like that state, they are one of the bottoms in education. They have tons of poverty. I had a lot of friends from Mississippi when I used to live in Nashville, because a lot of them would move. Like a lot of them would move to other, better southern cities. And I'm not trying to put Mississippi down, because I celebrate that area a lot. I'm a huge music guy, so I celebrate the Delta Blues, and I've been trying to go to the Mississippi Delta for the longest time. I never got there just because of scheduling issues, but one of these days I'm going to get there. So I'm really not trying to put the area down, but they've got a lot of problems. And pretty much anyone that I've ever met that lives there will attest to that. Like, yeah, we got a lot of problems. We're really working hard. And our state's just messed up. And it's so bizarre that they find time to pass policy like this, and they can give resources out for something like saggy pants. Meanwhile, they're not doing anything about education in their state or jobs in their state. But hey, man, Mississippians, if you want some free counseling services, just sag your pants and make sure the right people see you.
Yeah, if you're depressed, got anxiety, sag your pants.
Sag those pants. Be like,
Free
what
health
can
services.
I don't know what to do. I just like it. I worked hard picking out these boxer shorts, and if I don't get validation on these boxer shorts looking nice, what am I going to do? I'm sad. I need to talk to somebody. I need to go into that counseling session and be like, what do you think of my underwear, counselor person? And then I'll feel better.
So you mentioned devoting resources. That's actually a big part of the story, because, it turns out they don't actually devote any resources to it. But first, let me get to a fun quote. He says, Weathersby told Mississippi Today, personally, I like to see people dressed when they're in public, and I like to see people with their pants up. Now, me, generally, I kind of agree with that. I don't want to see other people's underwear. But, again, finding people and then mental health counseling that they don't know how to pay for, come on. And again, how do they pay for it? They don't. They'd have no plan. Weathersby's bill has zero funding allocated to it. In fact, both departments in Mississippi have faced giant budget cuts and staff shortages within recent years. So, no extra
funding. You're
funding.
You're going to have to count on volunteers.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, any psychologist in the state, they're going to be like, would you be willing to donate 3 hours a week to underwear counseling? We'll call it that.
Underwear counseling.
For anyone that needs a little extra help, because they just got to show their underwear all willy-nilly. Just doing the devil's work and showing those boxer shorts.
Yep.
Would you be willing to contribute a little bit to the cause? And the psychologist will probably say, why the hell do I live here? Why am I in this state?
I would be surprised to see anyone go, yes, this is an epidemic that we must cleanse from the state of Mississippi. I'm in.
We really need to address this. We really need to. I know there's a bunch of children living in food deserts in this state, but damn it, man, those children do not need to look at strangers' underwear. We got to do something.
They don't. And just for the record,
they don't. That is true.
Just for the record, I agree that they don't. Don't sag your pants. It's dumb.
Yeah, don't do it.
Don't do it.
I'm not like a pro, but
no.
Ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. Devoting state resources to pants sagging is ridiculous. Now, let me give you my experience, right? Now, I actually think that this possibly has a slight bit of racial tinge to it. Why? Because who is generally noted as sagging their pants? Black youth. Uh-oh. Right? I mean, this could be another way of going after poor black people.
I don't know. A place like Mississippi, accusing them of racism, that might be a bit of a stretch.
You think so?
I don't
You
know.
think so?
I don't think they have any history of that there in that state. I think it's always...
Well, there are other communities that have banned sagging pants too, including a place called Opelika, Florida. I probably got that wrong. Or Opelika, and then Florida, and then Wildwood, New Jersey in 2015. And get this, 4 high school students in Tennessee were charged with indecent exposure for sagging their pants. 2 actually went to jail for wearing saggy pants. So that's why I kind of think...
Well, they better not sag their pants there, because that's where that comes from, and that's sending a different message.
It's true. But the overall disastrous, scary point of this is, oh, look, school to prison pipeline. If it's indecent exposure, which it not in this bill, but in Tennessee where they did it, school to prison pipeline. Scary stuff, right? Now, here's the other thing, right? Again, black youth, right? I grew up in a super white area. This is my personal anecdote that I'm going to throw in here for no reason. So I went to a super small school for high school in a small town. We had 0 black people. You want to know how many people sagged their pants? More than you would think. There would be a good chunk that if this law had existed in that school back then, probably a pretty sizable chunk of the student body would have been fined. Because white kids did it too.
Absolutely, and it was really...
Maybe that's
when
what
we were in high school. It was really trendy too. I don't know if it's as trendy now because I'm not in high school, but
I hope not.
I know it was like really trendy when we were that age, Jeff.
Yeah, back in the days, the olden days, where we didn't have Twitter and cell phones and Instagram.
We didn't. We had AOL-IM, man.
I know.
You would leave an away message. Your away message would be lyrics to a song that emphasized how you felt.
Yes.
Sending a message to that girl that won't date you. All right, I'm oversharing.
You might be. But look, again, ridiculous law. This is absolutely ridiculous. I don't agree with it. I also don't agree with sagging your pants. Just don't do it. As I said, I don't want to see your underwear. Nobody wants to see your fucking underwear. Pull your pants up. How do you walk like that even? Because I've seen people
looking like a fool with your pants on the ground.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad you brought that up.
It's time for that guy to make a comeback.
There you go. Looking like a fool with your pants on the ground. Don't do it. It's not cool. But also, Mississippi, don't ban it because that's ridiculous. I thought you're supposed to be for small government.
You guys have more important things to work on in that state.
You
Again,
do.
love ya. Want to visit the Delta Blues Museum soon. Want to see Morgan Freeman's Blues Club. You guys are huge cultural significance. All my friends from that state are wonderful people. But you got bigger problems. Mississippi. I'm sorry. You got way bigger problems.
And that's true. Incredibly true. So, Ron, that it?
Yeah, dude. I think we nailed it.
I think so too. All right, everybody. First, I want to thank Ron for being on the show. Ron, thanks
buddy.
as always, man.
Thanks for having me.
Always a fun time. We're going to see you next on Monday, all right?
Yeah. And again, can I, any LA folks that might have tuned in that are streaming this now, if you're looking for something to do tonight, come over to Flappers Comedy Club in Burbank. We're doing a live Jimmy Dore show. And that starts at 8 p.m. So if you're an LA native and you want to do something cool tonight, come on by. Say hello.
Live Jimmy Dore. I kind of wish I was there.
It's always a fun time, man. Last month was sold out, so hopefully this month is good too. So
all right. Well, thanks, Ron, and make sure to check that out. It sounds like it's going to be an awesome time. So, but anyway, I want to thank you guys at home for watching. Thanks everybody for going around the nation with me and Ron for the last hour. Thank all the patrons. Thank all you guys that are liking and sharing the video. If you haven't already, it helps. Sharing is caring. So give us a like on YouTube and give us a share when you see our videos and subscribe, please. It really helps us out. All right. So that's it. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Aiming for 3 p.m. If not, we'll do another 4 to 5. Still getting my schedule down. But anyway, we'll let you know. We'll keep you apprised. So, all right. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation.